We are back. You're ready to move forward, push forward. Some of these chapters now, even the last couple, they're getting a little bit more intense with the inner meaning to things. The intense version, really, of Napoleon Hill. He was way ahead of his time. And let's get moving. And with this module, I combined, you might be happy, but I combined chapter 12 and chapter 13. Chapter 12 is on the subconscious mind, which we've been talking a lot about in almost every single chapter. And chapter 13 is on the brain. So I felt like combining these two because they run back to back. They run really closely related together. The subconscious mind and the brain. The subconscious mind is the 11th step towards getting rich, and the brain is the 12th step towards getting rich. So we're almost there. Hang in there, and let's get going. But before we get going, let's do a short review on the subconscious mind. And we've been talking about this, and I showed you this, a short illustration on the subconscious mind. Remember, this is the body, and the top is the mind, because the mind controls our body. That's why the body is so small. That's about mind power. Okay, the first half is what is the conscious mind. The bottom half is the subconscious mind. Okay, now remember, do you remember? We've been through this a few times. This conscious mind is what? Is connected to our five senses. This is these antennas up here. The five senses is see, hear, taste, smell, touch. These are the five senses. Now, with these five senses, is really how education and really how we've been raised to collect data. Okay, and what I mean by that is through our environment, the media, our parents, the influences, acquaintances, aunts, uncles, friends at school, every single thing that comes through here is by our five senses up here. And this is what connects or goes into our conscious mind. Remember, our conscious mind also has the ability to do what? It has the ability to accept and reject anything that comes into our mind at this point, our conscious mind. So as we're, for example, you're watching a movie, it says something, you think, oh no, that's not true. So you have the ability to accept it or reject it. Now, our subconscious mind, once things go that deep, our subconscious mind does not have the ability, will not have the ability to accept or reject. What does it do? It just takes it as truth. So the subconscious mind just takes it as truth. Doesn't matter if it's a lie, if it's positive or negative, it takes it as a fact. We're going to stop right here, and we're going to continue on with chapter 12 for the subconscious mind. Now, Napoleon Hill starts, and this chapter is only 4 or 5 pages, but it is loaded with information. The subconscious mind consists of a field of consciousness in which every impulse of thought that reaches the objective mind. Now, the objective mind is the conscious mind. So the conscious mind can be the objective mind through any of the 5 senses. It's classified and recorded, from which thoughts may be recalled or withdrawn as letters may be taken from a filing cabinet. Okay, so conscious mind is also the objective mind when Napoleon Hill is talking about the objective mind. It receives and files sense impressions or thought regardless of their nature. You may voluntarily plant into your subconscious mind any plan, thought, or purpose which you desire to translate into its physical or monetary equivalent. The subconscious mind acts first on the dominating desires which have been mixed with emotional feeling, such as faith. Let's write this down. Now, the main component to the conscious mind, or the objective mind, is the five senses. That's where you get all your information. You have the ability to accept it or reject it. Now, the subconscious mind, as things filter through the conscious mind to the subconscious mind, the subconscious mind feeds on what Napoleon Hill is saying. It feeds on emotion. Any feeling mixed with emotion is going to influence the subconscious mind, or going to have a stronger influence. So again, the subconscious acts first on the dominating desires which have been mixed with emotional feeling, such as faith. Again, what is faith? Let's review. What is faith? Faith equals what? Belief. Belief equals what? You expect it. When you expect something, what's a stronger word when you expect something? You demand it. Here is directly related to emotion. Emotion influences the subconscious mind. Now, emotion is led by faith. Let's continue. Consider this connection with the instructions given in chapter on desire. For the taking the 6 steps, they're outlined, and the instructions given in the chapter, when he's talking about the 6 steps for your goal, on building and execution of plans. And you will understand the importance of the thought conveyed. The subconscious mind works day and night. Let me tell you this. The subconscious mind works day and night. See, this is why it's so imperative. Remember your goal. You read morning and night. Morning and night. Because it's in that sleepy state that kind of bridges the gap here. Let me show you. It's in the sleepy state where you bridge the gap of your conscious mind to your subconscious mind. Because your conscious mind, your objective mind, is ruled by what? It's ruled by your 5 senses. What happens when we get sleepy? When we get tired, we're almost ready to go to sleep. Well, our 5 senses start to diminish. So our conscious mind bridges that gap. It gets weak. It's weak at that point. Our conscious mind, how are we accepting and rejecting, gets weaker. We're not accepting, rejecting. This opens up directly relating to the subconscious mind. Does that make sense? That's why being in a sleepy state, you have to be really careful on what you're doing, what you're watching on TV, if you're falling asleep to the TV or the radio or music. Because a conscious mind doesn't sleep. It's awake all the time. That's what Napoleon Hill is stating. The subconscious mind works day and night, no matter if you know it or not, no matter if you want to believe it or not. Through a method of procedure unknown to man or woman, the subconscious mind draws upon the forces of infinite intelligence for the power with which it voluntarily transmutes one desire into their physical equivalent, making use always of the most practical media by which this end may be accomplished. See, what he's saying there is once something is accepted in the subconscious mind, once it's accepted as truth. Once the subconscious mind accepts it as truth, things are going to manifest to you in the most practical way possible. Might not be your method of choice, but that's what it's going to act on. Let's continue. You cannot entirely control your subconscious mind, but you can voluntarily hand over to it any plan, any desire or purpose which you wish transform into concrete form. Read again instructions for using the subconscious mind in the chapter of autosuggestion. If you need to, go back right now and reread the chapter from the subconscious mind on autosuggestion. Now we do a review here. Remember, with autosuggestion is the easiest form to influence our subconscious mind. What is Napoleon Hill talking about when he says autosuggestion? Do you remember? He's talking about affirmations. Right? Remember? He's talking about affirmations and repetition. He's talking about these two things right here. This is autosuggestion. Like an affirmation, for example, is the 6 steps in your goal statement that you read morning and night. That's an affirmation. And you do it twice a day. That's repetition. Twice a day, every single day, as long as you live until that goal is realized. This is the best known way to influence your subconscious mind. That's what Napoleon Hill is stating. Let's move on. He continues, you will also understand why you have been repeatedly admonished to make your desires clear and to reduce them to writing. You will also understand that the necessity of persistence in carrying out these instructions. So again, now with affirmations and repetition, you're practicing what? Persistence. Because you have to continually do it over and over and over and over and over. I'll read it one more time. He says, you will also understand why you have been repeatedly admonished to make your desires clear, concise, specific, and to reduce them to writing. See, there's power in writing. We're getting away from it in our society. There's power in writing. But then also he's saying clear and specific. See, this is the thing. If this is true, okay, the subconscious mind, once something enters the subconscious mind, once from the conscious mind, it enters the subconscious mind. Once it enters the subconscious mind, it becomes true. Your subconscious mind cannot dictate between what's real or unreal, what's reality or not, just truth. If it's reached your subconscious mind, it must be true. But what if the issue is when people have vague objectives, goals, dreams, they're vague, and vague is just, I just want to have a lot of money. Well, that's pretty, that's pretty vague. A lot of money to you may be totally different from a lot of money to you. Or a lot of money to, did I say that backwards? A lot of money to me may be different than what's a lot of money to you. What's a lot of money to you may be different from a lot of money to one of your friends. So vagueness doesn't get our goal, because vagueness, our subconscious mind looks at as vague, and it's something simple as this. It says, or it means that, Chad, I just want a nice car. And I tell you, be specific. Nope, I just want a nice car. Then down the road, your friend gives you a car for free, but it's a clunker. But in their mind, it's a nice car. But in your mind, once you see it, you're like, or you might be grateful, but you're like, that's not a nice car. That's a clunker. You see the difference? You're being vague. But the subconscious mind gave you exactly what you said. A nice car. But it doesn't really mean that it's nice to you because you were being vague. But you did get a car. It's just not the car that you wanted because you were unclear. You didn't give specific instructions to your subconscious mind exactly to the T what you wanted. That's why you have to be specific. So when we're talking about a car, now all of a sudden you say, okay, this is what I want, Chad. I want a 2016 a blood orange. You might notice that I love that color, blood orange. 911 Porsche Turbo S Cavalier convertible. And I want it by this such and such date. Now, you're giving specific orders to your subconscious mind. Then when we do this, the specific orders are by what? By affirmation and repetition. Make sense? That's how we influence the subconscious mind. And it's more power if we're doing it at a sleepy state. Because if we're doing it at a sleepy state, what happens? What happens again at a sleepy state? Your conscious mind, your five senses are at rest. So your conscious mind needs to rest, but your subconscious mind doesn't rest, it's awake. So when your conscious mind is going into rest mode, it bridges this wall, per se, for the subconscious mind, and it lets things seep in easier than it would if you're wide awake. Does that make sense? Let's continue. He says, the 13 principles are the stimuli with which you acquire the ability to reach and to influence your subconscious mind. So you're using the 13 principles to reach and influence your subconscious mind. It's about mastery. See, now he's saying again in this chapter about mastery, about the 13 principles. Do not become discouraged if you cannot do this upon the first attempt. Be persistent. I'm adding that. Remember that the subconscious mind may be voluntarily directed only through habit. Under the directions given in the chapter on faith, which is what? Faith. Believe. You expect it. You demand it. You have not yet had time to master faith. If you have not yet had time to master faith, master belief, master expectancy, master demanding it, he says, be patient. Be persistent. He says, remember, your subconscious mind functions voluntarily, whether you make any effort to influence it or not. Wow, listen. Remember, your subconscious mind functions voluntarily, whether you make any effort to influence it or not. See, no matter if you believe it's true or not, it's still working for you or against you. It's still doing its job, no matter you realize it or not. Let's continue. The subconscious mind will not remain idle. If you fail to plant desires in your subconscious mind, it will feed upon the thoughts which reach it as the result of your neglect. How is that possible? Through your five senses, through your environment, everybody you're associating with, you're listening to everything. He says, every which man or woman create begins in the form of the thought impulse. Man can create nothing which he does not first conceive as a thought. See, thought, imagination. You cannot get or achieve anything At first, you have to think of it as a thought. You have to imagine it. That's what he's saying. All thought impulses intended for transmutation into their physical equivalent, voluntarily planted in the subconscious mind, must pass through the imagination and mixed with faith. Mixed with faith. Mixing of faith with a plan or purpose intended for submission to the subconscious mind may be done only through the imagination. Woo! Let's add this another word here. Now, he said these affirmations, repetitions, and being persistent with it, your affirmation for your goal, you create emotion around it to lift your vibration. You do that all by faith and belief, but he throws in another word. Imagination. You have to be able to imagine you achieving this goal over here, this car. You have to see yourself driving it, feel yourself in it, feel what it would be like you owning it, you going down to your garage and sitting there. You have to imagine this to help influence your subconscious mind. Let's continue. He continues to say, all thought impulses intended for transmutation into their physical equivalent, voluntarily planned in the subconscious mind, must pass through the imagination and mixed with faith. And the mixing of faith with a plan or purpose intended for submission to the subconscious mind may be done only through imagination. I wanted you to hear that again. From these statements, you will readily observe that the voluntary use of the subconscious mind calls for coordination and application of all the principles. Listen to this. He's talking about mastery of all the 13 principles. For these statements, you will readily observe that the voluntary use of the subconscious mind calls for coordination and the application of all the principles. So now, in order to master the subconscious mind, influence it, and really influence it, it's about what? Let me use a different color. It's about mastery of the 13 principles. It's not picking and choosing which one we like and don't like. Mastery of all the principles. Now, when I start pointing it out, isn't it funny how in every single chapter, he's brought this up in a sentence, in a paragraph, somewhere about mastery of all the principles. I told you in the beginning he does this. He continues about the subconscious mind. He says the subconscious mind is more susceptible to influence by impulses of thought mixed with feeling or emotion. Brings up feeling and emotion. That's what really influences the subconscious mind. So if you really want to influence the subconscious mind, you have to be emotional about it. Emotion ups your vibration, no matter if you're negative or positive. It increases your vibration. That's why you have to be so careful on what you're emotional about. But see, this is what Napoleon Hill is saying. If you're not emotional and don't have imagination, especially emotion, all this stuff you're doing is just like saying mere words. That's why he says you have to master the 13 principles. Because emotions is directed to imagination, is directed to everything that we do. That's what influences our subconscious mind, is emotion. And he says, in fact, there is much evidence to support the theory that only emotionalized thoughts have an action influence upon the subconscious mind. It is well known fact that emotion or feeling rules the majority of people. Listen to this. It is It is true that the subconscious mind responds more quickly to and is influenced more readily by thought impulses which are mixed with emotion. It is essential to become familiar with the more important of the emotions. There are 7 major positive emotions and 7 major negative emotions. The negatives voluntarily inject themselves into thought impulses. The positives must be injected. See what he's saying? The negative just comes natural to us. But the positive ones, we have to purposely inject into our subconscious mind. And he says, through the principle of autosuggestion, which is affirmations and repetition, into the thought impulses which an individual wishes to pass on to the subconscious mind. Okay, now he goes through a list. I want you to study this. The 7 major positive emotions, which is desire, faith, love, sex, enthusiasm, romance, and hope. Then he goes into the 7 major negative emotions. Now these, you really have to become master because almost all of them are twisted and turned into almost every person. Fear, jealousy, hatred, revenge, greed, superstition, and anger. Then he says, positive and negative emotions cannot occupy the mind at the same time. One or the other must dominate. Think about this, and it's truth. Positive and negative emotions cannot occupy our mind at the same time. One or the other must dominate. Which ones are dominating your life right now? See, most of the time it's negative because that's what you're bringing into your life. See, most of us, when we become adults, just observe people, listen to conversations. You know, they're complaining most of the time, whining most of the time. You know, maybe they're not hardcore complaining, but it's always complaining about something. Well, when you complain, that's all you attract to your life. You want to know why rich people keep on getting rich? Because that's all they talk about and think about. Simple. Then Napoleon Hill says, here, the law of habit will come to your aid when you're mastering the subconscious mind to influence your subconscious mind. It's about habit. Only by following these instructions literally and continuously can you gain control over your subconscious mind. The presence of a single negative in your conscious mind is sufficient to destroy all chances of constructive aid from your subconscious mind. Wow, listen to this. The presence of a single negative in your conscious mind is sufficient to destroy all chances of constructive aid from your subconscious mind. Then he goes on, he says, if you are an observing person, you must have noticed that most people resort to prayer only after everything else has failed. Or else they pray by a ritual of meaningless words. And because it is a fact that most people who pray do so only after everything else has failed, they go to prayer with their minds filled with fear and doubt, which are the emotions the subconscious mind acts upon and passes on to the infinite intelligence. Likewise, that is the emotion which infinite intelligence receives and acts upon. Listen to this. Listen to this. This is so true. When you go into prayer and you're a religious person, most of the time when we pray, it's our last resort. Everything else we tried has failed. And when we go into it, we think, please, please, please. We go into it with fear and doubt that's not going to happen anyway. And that's exactly what we get. That's exactly what is given to us through our subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind, why does this happen? Because our emotions going into it is fear and doubt. Those two emotions. And that's what's triggering our subconscious mind. And that's exactly what we get. He says, prayer does not sometimes result in the realization of that for which one prays. If you have ever had the experience of receiving that for which you prayed, go back in your memory. Listen to this. Go back in your memory and recall your actual state of mind while you were praying. And you will know for sure that the theory here described is more than a theory. So what he's saying is, if you ever prayed and got what you wanted, go back and observe and think your state of mind, your state of vibration, your emotional state at that point. And you will know or realize what Napoleon Hill is stating as a fact. He said, man will have attained his true status as a child of infinite intelligence if you have already attained this blessing. If you follow the 13 principles, master the 13 principles. He continues, the subconscious mind is the intermediate which translates one's prayers into terms which infinite intelligence can recognize, presents the message, and brings back the answer in form of a definite plan or idea for procuring the object of prayer. Understand this principle. Napoleon Hill says, understand this principle. And you will know why mere words read from a prayer book cannot and will never serve as an agency of communication between the mind of man or woman and infinite intelligence. See, I just said that. Without having imagination and being emotional, responsive to it, lifting a vibration, if you're just reading words off a prayer book, that's not going to do anything for the subconscious mind. Then, ending this chapter, think about this. Faith and fear make poor bedfellows. Where one is found, the other cannot exist. Wow. Faith and fear are poor bedfellows. Where one is found, the other cannot exist. If you have faith, you cannot have fear. See, if you have fear, your faith is so weak. Fear is dominating. See, faith, remember, faith is belief. If you have faith, you really believe it. If you really believe it, you expect it. If you really expect it, you demand it to happen. Fear can be nowhere in if you truly have faith. Make sense? Now, let's move on to chapter 13 on the brain. Remember, the brain is a 12th step towards riches. Now, I'm leaving this up. We're moving forward because the brain here is the conscious and the subconscious mind. So this goes on with the subconscious mind chapter. Let's continue. Napoleon Hill says every human brain is both a broadcasting and receiving station for the vibration of thought. So what he means by here, let me say it one more time. Every human brain is both a broadcasting and receiving station for the vibration of thought. So if you look at thought as giving and receiving, a certain thought, as a thought goes out as universal law, that thought has to come right back to me, reciprocal to the origination point. Make sense? Because the origination point is the energy point where I send out that thought. So no matter if that thought's positive or negative, the brain is a broadcasting and receiving station for the vibration of that thought. He continues, the creative imagination is the receiving set of the brain, which receives thoughts released by the brains of others. So now, with this imagination, remember, when we're talking about imagination, Napoleon Hill is saying the creative imagination. So the whole chapter on imagination, remember, it's the creative side of imagination that Napoleon Hill is focused on. He continues, it is the agency of communication between one's conscious or reasoning mind and the four sources from which one may receive thought stimuli. So Napoleon Hill is saying, when stimulated or stepped up to a high rate of vibration, the mind becomes more receptive to the vibration of thought, which reaches it through ether, which is air, from the outside sources. Listen, when the mind becomes stimulated, how does it become stimulated? Through vibration. Now, this vibration here, creative imagination or emotion, remember, it can be positive or negative. We want it to be positive, but it can be both. Because why? Because the subconscious mind doesn't care. It takes it as truth. This stepping up process takes place through the positive emotions or negative emotions. Listen to this. This stepping up process takes place through the positive emotions or negative emotions. Through the emotions, the vibrations of thought may be increased. See, this is what I'm saying. Our emotions, we have to be careful of what we're emotional about, what we're feeding our vibration with. Vibrations of an exceedingly high rate are the only vibrations picked up, listen, picked up and carried by the ether, air, from one brain to another. Thought is energy traveling at an exceedingly high rate of vibration. See, thought is energy. The higher our vibrational state, no matter positive or negative, that's what we're attracting to us. The brain, which has been stimulated by the emotion of sex, vibrates at a much more rapid rate than it does when that emotion is absent. So now here he's twisting in transmutation. He's talking about this sexual part. He's talking about this sex emotion, how sex, the emotion of sex, vibrates and stimulates the mind. Then he continues on. The result of sex transmutation is the increase of the rate of vibration of thoughts to such a pitch that the creative imagination becomes highly receptive to ideas. Listen, the creative imagination through sex transmutation or thinking about sex becomes highly receptive to ideas, which it picks up from the ether, which is air. And it says, on the other hand, when the brain is vibrating at a rapid rate, it not only attracts thoughts and ideas released by other brains through the medium of ether, air, but it gives to one's own thoughts that feeling which is essential before those thoughts will be picked up and acted upon by one's own subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is the sending station of the brain. Listen to this. The subconscious mind is the sending station of the brain, through which vibrations of thought are broadcast. The creative imagination is a receiving set through which the vibrations of thought are picked up from the ether, which is air. Now you start seeing how everything is starting to connect. Operation of the mental broadcasting station is a comparatively simple procedure. You will have but three principles to bear in mind and to apply when you wish to use your broadcasting station. 1, the subconscious mind. 2, the creative imagination. And 3, autosuggestion. The stimuli through which you put these three principles into action have been described. The procedure begins with desire. So now he's saying the principles here so the subconscious mind is here through creative imagination and through the principle of autosuggestion, which is down here. And this procedure begins with a great desire. Is your goal, which over here we used as a car. This is your desire in this example. It's how intensified is this desire is going to stimulate your creative imagination, stimulate your affirmations and repetitions, and get your vibrational state emotional, get your emotions going, positive, to influence your subconscious mind. And he continues at the end of the chapter on the last page. He says, the conditions to which I refer consist of a close working alliance between myself and 2 members of my staff. Through the experimentation and practice, we have discovered how to stimulate our minds by applying the principle used in connection with the individual counselors, which that's in the next chapter in the next module, described in the next chapter, so that we can process by blending our 3 minds into one. Find the solution to a great variety of personal problems which are submitted by my clients. This procedure is very simple. We sit down at a conference table, clearly state the nature of the problem we have under consideration, then begin discussing it. Each contributes whatever thoughts that may occur. The strange thing about this method of mind stimulation is that it takes place under the participant in a communication with unknown sources of knowledge, definitely outside his own experience. If you understand this principle described in this chapter of the mastermind, you of course recognize the roundtable procedure here described as being a practical application of the mastermind. The method of mind stimulation through harmoniously discussion of definite subjectives between 3 people illustrates the simplest and most practical use of the mastermind. By adopting and following a similar plan, any student of this philosophy may come into possession of the famous Carnegie formula briefly described in the introduction. If it means nothing to you at this time, mark this page and read it again after you have finished the last chapter. And that's your homework. Mark this page because these 3 paragraphs on the last page he's really hinting to what the next chapter is going to be about. So it's kind of getting confusing. What is he talking about here? But it's going to be explained in the next chapter and the next module. Now let's end with this quote. The Depression was a blessing in disguise. It reduced the whole world to a new starting point that gives everyone a new opportunity. This is a great review here on the subconscious mind and the mastery of the 13 principles. And I will see you in the next chapter, the next module.